everyone, I'm Ashleigh Banfield, and this is Drop Dead Serious. Got another piece of the puzzle for you tonight. The more I learn about Brian Hooker, the more I can't stand this guy. But tonight, I want to show you, and I'm recording this on Friday night on the 24th of April. I've discovered the photo of the dinghy parked at the Abaco Inn. The infamous dinghy, the last picture of the dinghy before Brian says they made off from the shore to head towards their yacht and she bounced off the back. If you're just coming into this story, we've got a playlist for you to get you caught up to this incredible mystery. I call it Paradise Lost in the Bahamas, of Brian and Lynette Hooker. Brian says Lynette just bounced right off the back of that there dinghy in 2 to 4 foot high seas and a screaming wind, and everything we found since says horseshit. It's just not true. There were not 2 to 4 foot seas, and the wind was not screaming on the lee side of Elbow Key. Yeah, on the windward side, it was crazy. Maybe 18 knots. White caps and crash and surf. And then on the leeward side, snorkeling weather for some. We even saw glass next to the shore as a little dinghy was pulling out, and then maybe a ripple as you head out even further, but hell to the no with the seas and the wind and the current and I can't find my wife when she fell off the back. Bullshit. So get yourself caught up to speed if you're just joining us. And by the way, subscribe. It would really help. But folks, this dinghy business, it's important because it's connected to a bigger story. So we're showing you the picture of Brian and Lynette's dinghy parked at the Abaco Inn. He swears they left at 7:30 and they got, out into the Sea of Abaco after about 6 minutes of, driving towards their 12-minute destination, which was Soulmate, the boat they were on, living on. And out she went. So this dinghy is parked exactly where I showed you, on the dock where I sort of did a walk and talk and showed you where they would tie up and what ladders they would walk up to head up to have drinks at the Abaco Inn. It was parked on that dock, on the south dock. We know that now because we see the picture. It was parked next to another dinghy, and that other dinghy belonged to some folks who were up having drinks at the Abaco Inn on Saturday night, April the 4th. And those folks saw Brian and Lynette and remarked something about Brian and Lynette. Something stood out to them, specifically that they looked very closely at Brian and Lynette at the pool and witnessed some odd behavior. First of all, I'm going to tell you about the behavior that these witnesses relayed to us. And they were not interested in going on camera. My apologies. I tried everything to do an interview, but they just didn't want to get involved. And I get it. A lot of people have said that in the Bahamas and even stateside. But this is the account that we got. Brian was sitting way over on the right in the picture that we've seen. They have the same account. They were sitting overlooking this scene. Brian is way over on the right, facing out to the Atlantic Ocean, facing east into the wind. And what they said was pouting. It said he looked like he was pouting and that he never moved and he never changed positions, staring straight out to sea. Lynette was all the way at the left-hand side of the picture, at the northern end of the pool, taking selfies and dancing by herself for a while, like dancing by herself at the pool, enjoying herself, but alone, far away from Brian, and not for a short amount of time. It seemed to be that they characterized it for like almost half an hour that they were witnessing this scene. And the way it was relayed to us was that it was not normal at all. We asked everyone that we knew who was at the bartender, one of the employees there, other people who were there, who we've encountered, if they witnessed this couple and if they made a scene, if they were fighting, arguing, if anything stood out. And everyone said, no, it was really kind of nondescript. But I think I know why. If you're in the bar at the Abaco Inn, it really kind of like faces towards the west to the sunset. The pool is actually out of the view of the bar for the most part. There are some tables on the outside of the bar where you can see the pool, but if you're in the bar, you don't even know there's a pool. I actually was talking to somebody in that bar and mentioned the pool, and they said, there's a pool? So you'd have to go out and then walk back to the Atlantic side to sort of then start seeing the pool that is, down some stairs. It's not super easy to see. So it's possible that people didn't remark about the couple because if you're in the bar, you don't see them and you wouldn't notice their behavior because it's out of sight, out of mind. But these people who spoke with us, they were out at those tables overlooking the pool. So they would have had a view of the only people who were down at the pool and acting in this way. Lynette is over dancing by herself. Brian is staring straight out to sea. Whatever that means, it's another piece of this puzzle. But why did it stand out to them so much other than kind of odd behavior? This is the story that comes back to us from one of the people who was there and witnessing this scene. The friends that he was with had been in another bar on March 31st, so about 4 days earlier. And that bar's on a whole other island. The memory is that perhaps it's Nippers, another bar that's not far from Elbow Key, but you got to take a boat. But that these friends of his were annoyed by a guy who sure resembled Brian Hooker. That this guy that they think is Brian Hooker was pestering them at this bar, shaking a vial and saying, let's party. And like they felt uncomfortable is the way they described it to the person who's at the Abaco Inn with them, relaying this to us. And the reason that this couple at the pool stood out to them was because immediately they said, there's that fucking guy. There's that weird guy that was pissing us off at Nippers 4 days ago. Now, could they be mistaken? Yes, they could be. Honestly, a lot of sailors tend to start looking alike if they're in their late 50s and they've been out in the sun a lot and they've got their shirt off, gray hair, pot belly, deep tan. But they seem to think it was the same guy, and that's why they fixated and watched this odd behavior playing out in that pool area. He's way over there, staring straight out to sea, pouting. She's over here on the far end, dancing by herself and taking some selfies. They thought that was that guy from 4 days prior at Nippers. They think it's Nippers. Acting weird, making them uncomfortable, saying, let's party. Anyway, that's why the memory really stands out for them. So that was their dinghy parked beside Brian and Lynette's dinghy. So this is significant. Let me give you the times, okay? The picture of Brian and Lynette's dinghy is taken at 5:41 p.m. So Brian and Lynette are still at the Abaco Inn for another hour and 15 or so minutes, hour and 20 minutes, because we've got them walking down alone at 7:20. We don't know where Lynette is at this point. But the selfie picture was taken at 5:44. So it's interesting. The picture that is towards the dinghy and the picture facing west of the dinghy is 5:41. And 3 minutes later, you can see Lynette taking a selfie at the pool. But these folks left in their dinghy and saw Brian and Lynette's dinghy as they pulled out, thinking that belongs to that couple. So they had a good idea of what was going on, and that Brian and Lynette's dinghy was still tied up when they were pulling out sometime around 6:30 p.m. That's when they said they pulled out. So Brian and Lynette are still there, and the photographic evidence seems to prove it. They pull out at 6:30 and they leave. Presumably Brian and Lynette's the only dinghy left there. So, they're staying late. They're staying later than the average boater. But again, it's still light out until 7:45. I mean, by 7:45, I wouldn't want to be out in a dinghy without running lights. But since I'm closer to shore than all the bigger boats, I probably would still be okay with it. But I'd probably want to leave by 7:30 and be on board my boat by 7:45. And when it's dark at 8, I don't want to be out there at all unless I got running lights. So just a sort of a fascinating few pieces to the puzzle, just a few more things that have come into this bizarre mystery. Few other pieces of information I want to give to you as well. The bartender, Ken, told me that Brian, when he first arrived and ordered his first round of rum and cokes, Cuba Libres, was wearing a blue and white striped shirt in his recollection. Not wide stripes, not very bold stripes, but it's kind of like, maybe it was patterned, but at least seemed to be blue and whitish and stripy. interesting because the next time Brian came back to him, he said he was wearing no shirt at all. So Ken's got a good memory. Look, bartenders, I was a bartender for 6 years. Bartenders have good memories. We know what people drink. We know a lot about them because sometimes they're assholes, sometimes they're awesome, sometimes you're trying to figure out if they're going to be assholes and you're not going to get tipped. But we do tend, it's been 38 years since I've been a bartender, but I do know that bartenders have very good memories, and Ken seemed to have a great memory. He's been a bartender for decades at the Abaco Inn. So he remembers the shirt is sort of a blue and white stripe maybe, and he comes back, he's not wearing a shirt. There is another witness recollection of Brian at the bar with Lynette, because we did not know that Lynette had come into the bar at any time. It seemed that Brian had just ordered the drinks and taken them back to the pool. Turns out, at some point in the evening, Lynette actually sidled up to the bar with Brian. And if you know the Abaco Inn, I'm just going to tell you it's the north end of the bar, kind of next to the seating group. And I'll show you the picture. Like I shot a picture of Ken, the bartender, walking into the bar and walking up to the bar and then kind of stopping at the edge of the bar. That's where Brian and Lynette were actually seated. And this is according to someone who shared a photograph with me that caught Brian at 7 p.m. walking down by himself, no Lynette, towards the dock. We don't know if he got into the boat at any time at that point. All we can say is that he's already crossing the street and he's about to hit the path towards the docks where his dinghy was parked. And she told me that when she spoke to the Bahamian police about her photo, they showed her some of the surveillance video from the bar that night. And wouldn't you know it, this witness told me Brian and Lynette are seated at that north end of the bar, right up against the wood, and he is wearing a gray or tan solid color shirt. Well, now I'm fascinated, right? Because Ken says when he first showed up, 4:30 or so, ordered his first round of drinks. He's got the blue and white-ish patterny kind of shirt. And then he goes to the pool, comes back without his shirt for the second round of drinks. And this witness says she's seen surveillance video of them both sitting up at the edge of the bar. And he's got her description is a gray or tan colored, solid colored, no pattern shirt. Did Brian have two shirts? It's not weird. Every time I would ever get in a tender, go ashore from a boat or a sailboat or a motorboat, I might pack two things because something might get wet on the way. Or you might go swimming and something might get wet. Or you might want longer sleeves for later in the day. So it wouldn't be weird if Brian came ashore with two shirts. It wouldn't be weird. Which would, if you believe Brian, should have him floating across to Marsh Harbor with those shirts. One he's wearing and one in his dry bag. He's not supposed to get back to the soulmate, right? Brian, if you only had one shirt, where'd the other shirt go? The witness said they saw you in a tan or light gray shirt at the bar. And actually it's on video, apparently, according to this witness, on surveillance video. Abaco Inn, please at some point reconsider releasing that surveillance video. I know that the Royal Bahamian Police have told you not to, but it's really causing a lot of problems because it could solve a lot of these issues for everybody involved investigating this. Okay, off my soapbox. So it wouldn't be weird if Brian had two shirts coming ashore. But since Brian's story is that he never made it back to soulmate, neither did his wife, you better bloody well have those two shirts in your stuff, in your dry bag. Speaking of the dry bag, something stinks in Denmark. Let me tell you what I know. Okay. There are witnesses, obviously, to Brian washing ashore, right? Because he came for help at the boatyard. Like, hey, I came, I just washed up on shore and I need help, right? There are human people at that boatyard. There are Bahamians and locals who had eyes on Brian when he said, I got marooned. I've been floating all night. And he was carrying a yellow dry bag. Thing is, he washes up on shore around 4 o'clock in the morning, says all these things on tape, right? On a recording saying, oh yeah, and then I went through all the thicket of the woods and had to go get some help. So 2.5 hours later, 3.5 hours later, around 7:30 in the morning, That's when he steps on board the fire and rescue boats, right? The fire and rescue boat has fire and rescue personnel. They're volunteers. Shout out. These guys are saints. And they have Bahamian cops on board. So fire and rescue welcomes Brian onto their vessel off of the shore of Marsh Harbor, where 3.5 hours earlier he was marooned. Here's what's just batshit crazy. One of the fire and rescue guys can't remember what color dry bag he was carrying. Another fire and rescue guy remembers it being aqua colored. I'm going to get to why he's so certain it was aqua. A third fire and rescue guy says it was bluish, which could be aqua, right? Aqua's kind of a blue-green. And a fourth fire and rescue guy says it was yellow. And banana yellow ain't blue, ain't aqua. So there's something hinky about what color dry bag was Brian Hooker carrying when he stepped off of Marsh Harbor onto that rescue vessel to start going around and helping them look for Lynette and telling them where it all happened. Here's the aqua story of the dry bag that's aqua. The rescuer that remembers aqua has a good memory of it being aqua for this reason. You ready? Pour a drink. Here we go. That's root beer. When they picked him up from Marsh Harbor, they crossed way back over 4 miles to Elbow Key, where Brian says, my wife went out, bounced right out the back of the boat, pulling with her the lanyard that was hanging off straight up and down from the engine that pulled the key off, and her dry bag, out she goes. Meanwhile, her hand's on the tiller. She's apparently driving. But she bounces out and she's able to grab her dry bag and grab the lanyard with the key, and out she goes. And the dry bag has the extra key, and oh no, Brian is left with no engine. I can't save her. It's too windy and the waves are too big and I can't see her anymore. Bullshit. None of that's true. The wind and the waves were nothing like that. And it wasn't that dark either. It got dark at 8. So you'd have to be swimming on your back to make it that long before suddenly you were in a position where you couldn't see your wife anymore. Dinghy would have taken all of about 6 to 8 minutes to get to the position where you said your wife bounced out. And even at 7:38, it wasn't that dark. So, okay. So when the fire and rescue guys first got Brian on board, they went right across to Elbow Key, 4 miles away from Marsh Harbor. But they sidled up next to the Soulmate, okay? And they tied up next to Soulmate, Brian and Lynette Hooker's yacht, their 46-foot ketch. And this is what the rescue guy with the aqua memory, it's an aqua dry bag. This is why he remembers the aqua dry bag so well. He says Brian tossed the aqua dry bag up on the back, like kind of above the transom, probably where I'm guessing, I haven't been inside the boat, but I'm guessing it's the master cabin is below there. And then forward of that is the cockpit. And then forward of there is the doorway down into the cabin. And he remembers, this rescuer remembers Brian throwing the aqua dry bag up on the back of Soulmate and then messing around with what looked to them like an air conditioning unit for about a minute, and then turning around with the one police representative that got on board with him, and they went down below for about an hour. And these other guys just stayed on board the rescue vessel, bobbing along, tied up next to Soulmate, and then up came not the detective, but the Royal Bahamian Police representative and Brian, and got back on board the rescue vessel. Why was he tampering and mucking about with this air conditioner? Hide a key. He said something to Blaine Stevenson on his recording, like, I had to break into my own fucking boat. That's how he said it. So my assumption is his hyperbole of breaking into his own fucking boat is actually just messing with the air conditioner to get the hide key. Because if you lose your dry bag and you lose your shit and you can't get back into your locked cabin, it's a very expensive problem. But if you have a hide key, he was probably disconnecting this air conditioning unit, what looked to be, to one of the witnesses on board the rescue vessel, it looked to be a small window air conditioning unit. Whether it is or not, I don't know, but that's what it looked to be. Disconnecting it maybe to get a hide key, and then down they went. So broke into your own boat. You got your hide key. But the rescuer, with the memory of the aqua dry bag, remembers then Brian getting back on board the rescue vessel tied up next to Soulmate and leaving his dry bag back up next to where he had tossed it on the back of the transom area, right? Not before the, like a little before the transom, right? Transom sort of slanted. But the description is almost like, dumbass, you left your dry bag, right? Hey, dumbass left your dry bag. That's why it sticks in the rescuer's mind that it was aqua colored. So that's a big memory, an aqua colored dry bag. But I am trying for the life of me, and please comment if you have figured this one out and help me help you. I mean, I'm at this point where I'm like, what? The witnesses at the boatyard early in the morning, they're seeing him with a banana yellow dry bag. 3 of the rescuers on board the rescue vessel, the fire and rescue vessel, see aqua-ish and blue-ish, and the 4th one sees a banana-colored one. Banana-colored dry bag. This is really, it's making me struggle. There is a bluish dry bag in one of these social media images, and it looks pretty blue. And in fact, the first rescuer who told me the description said royal bluish. And this rescuer was great with his memory. I mean, he said royal bluish dry bag, bluish slides, and a Hawaiian cut shirt that was a fabric of like sailing or fishermen, sort of like, a tech shirt that had a pattern of sort of a bluish and white kind of pattern. Sounds a little like Ken the Bartender's recollection too. But that memory was very specific. It sure as shit wasn't banana yellow dry bag. So there's something there. There's some there, I think. I know that witness memories can be all over the place, but these guys are pros. Aqua/bluish green dry bag guy had a very specific memory of it going up on the back of Soulmate, and dumbass left his dry bag up there. Maybe the one that saw the banana yellow dry bag, maybe that rescuer, even though he really believes that it was like from the beginning, from the beginning, I think he had a yellow dry bag. Maybe the memory is from the beginning of the search, which came after they had pulled up to Soulmate. Then they went out to start pointing out, where did this happen? And Brian's like, oh, I was so confused. Bro, you're a mariner. You're a former Marine. You're always a Marine. You were a Marine. It wasn't that windy. And it sure as shit wasn't that wavy. So why were you so confused? You had 2 drinks, yo. They weren't doubles. I asked Ken. They were standard singles. You had 2 drinks from 4:30 till at least 7, maybe 7:30. You weren't hammered. In fact, the rescuers asked you about that. You never mentioned anything about being hammered. Oh, and you never mentioned that your wife was wearing a green cover-up when they said, what was she wearing? We really need to know what we're looking for. You never mentioned the green cover-up, the blue scarf on her head, the sunglasses, maybe even the black fanny pack that she's photographed in, and her Apple Watch. Look at yesterday's episode if you missed it. It's a doozy. Yeah, she was wearing an Apple Watch in her last photos. And there was a pink Apple Watch that was seized on board. So that might suck for Brian. So yeah, the rescuers, the fire and rescue guys were pretty specific about their memories and about their work and trying to figure out, what are we looking for? What is Lynette wearing? And he doesn't even say blue scarf, green colored bathing suit cover up. All he says is black 2-piece bathing suit. That's it. Black 2-piece bathing suit. It's a lot to not remember about your wife that you're desperate to find, who fell overboard. I don't know. Everybody's different, but that's a lot to not remember. All of these things are just so unsettling. Like every single time we see a new photo that shows where they were, what they were doing, where the dinghy is now. It's the first time we've seen this. This is an exclusive picture that we were able to get. It just brings up so many more pieces to the puzzle. It's very, very helpful to us. I will ask you again, thank you so much for you who have been watching and sending us these tips and these photos and information. You are invaluable to us. You are invaluable to the investigators. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask you again, if you think you know anything about this case, if you have friends in the Bahamas, if you are in the Bahamas, April 4th, the night before Easter, were you anywhere near the Abaco Inn? Do you have photos or video of that beautiful sunset? It was gorgeous. Please send them to dropdeadseriousinfo@gmail.com. Again, dropdeadseriousinfo@gmail.com. In a minute, you're going to hear from Steve and Karli. Karli Aylesworth is Lynette's daughter. She's got a lot to say about all the stuff that we've uncovered. And Steve Hansen is her boyfriend, who has been taking note of absolutely everything. He's got some things to say. But if you have any surveillance video, if you have a security camera, either facing off of Elbow Key into the west and seeing the beautiful Sea of Abaco, because you might want to watch it while you're in America, or you might live there and you might just want security. Please, for the love of God, look at your security video, look at your surveillance video from, I'll just say this, 7 p.m. local time in the Bahamas, right through till 8 p.m., and then keep on looking right through till midnight to see if you see a flare go off, because Brian swears he fired off a flare. We've seen no evidence of that. I've looked at video, other surveillance video from across the way at Lubber's quarters, another key, and I haven't seen that yet. If you have surveillance video anywhere around the Abaco Inn, if you rent a house, if you have a house, if you have rented a house, dropdeadseriousinfo@gmail.com. Reach out to us, because you may have actually captured the critical piece of evidence. The dinghy, did it really? Did this really happen the way he said it did? You may have it on camera. Did they keep going all the way to Soulmate and something happened there instead? You may have it on camera. Is there a flare that went off? You may have it on camera. It's all critical information. If you don't want to send it to me, totally understand. I appreciate that. Please send it to the Coast Guard who's investigating this. CGIS Tips. CGIS Tips. It's their app and it's anonymous. You can just download that app and it's anonymous. You can send your tips in. If you just want to go to a website instead, you don't want to download an app, you can do that too. The Coast Guard has a website where you can put in tips. It's P, as in the letter P, 3, the number 3, tips.com, p3tips.com. And we've got a QR code on the screen as well. We need your help, y'all. If you have friends who live in the Bahamas, call them, ask them, were you at the Abaco Inn the night before Easter? Anytime around 4:30 till 8 o'clock at night, anytime in that vicinity. Check your cameras, check your videos. You may have captured Brian and Lynette. You may have captured a critical clue. Again, if you live or if you have friends who live on Elbow Key and you face westward, if you can see the Sea of Abaco and your beautiful images that you like to see, please, for the love of God, send that to us. dropdeadseriousinfo@gmail.com. All right, I want you now to hear this interview that I conducted with Karli Aylesworth and her boyfriend, Steve Hansen, about everything that we've been learning so far and what they have to say about it. And it's pretty insightful. Here it is. Being on camera means that having the right makeup to keep my skin happy is super important. I've always hated when makeup feels cakey and heavy, but today's sponsor, Jones Road Beauty, gets it. Their products are clean and simple and good for your skin. It's perfect for that effortless, no makeup look. I've been using the Miracle Balm, which works as a blush, a highlighter, even as a lip stain. It is quick and it's natural, and it gives a really nice overall glow without looking overdone. And Jones Road Beauty just launched a new shadow stick, and it's already a staple for me. Simplify your beauty routine with clean and multifunctional makeup for effortless routines. For a limited time, our listeners are getting a free shimmer face oil on their first purchase when they use the code DropDeadSerious at checkout. Just head to jonesroadbeauty.com and use the code DropDeadSerious at the checkout. And after, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. So please do me a solid. Tell them Drop Dead Serious sent you. How are you guys doing?
I'm sad. I feel like all day I've been having like anxiety attack almost. I'm starting to wrap my head around it. It felt very surreal at first, but I'm starting to come to terms with reality.
I can imagine it's frustrating being here and being so far away from where this happened and feeling a little helpless.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the things that we have found in this case, particularly that picture of Brian walking down to the dock at the Abaco Inn by himself. Is there anything that struck you with that photo?
I don't know why they were separated. They're almost never separated unless they're fighting. So I don't know why. Maybe she went to the bathroom. Maybe she forgot something. So I don't know. It was...
Or maybe he did. Maybe she was down at the boat already and he had gone back up to use the bathroom and was coming back down. But it was 7 o'clock. That it just changes the timeline a little.
Yeah, so they had about 20 minutes in between when they left Abaco Inn till him walking to the boat. So
there's still a 20-minute time period that seems to be missing.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any feelings when you saw the picture of Brian walking by himself down to the dock?
Yeah, I thought that was really sketchy, and I started like shaking because I just started thinking about all the what ifs.
What was sketchy about it?
Just why weren't they together? Because they are always together. So the only reason when they're not is when they're fighting or when they have to go to the bathroom. Otherwise, they're together.
But seeing that image somehow had the effect on you that you began to shake?
Yeah, because I saw them leave before 7. Now at 7, he's walking by himself, and my mom is suddenly gone. So it just brought up a lot of feelings.
Understandable. Was there anything about the way he was walking, what he was wearing, anything at all that stood out to you?
I did notice his bucket hat. He does wear bucket hats a lot. You can even see in the pictures him always wearing a bucket hat. And then he has his yellow bag with him. So I wonder if he bought something at the shop. I don't know what color bags they use or who around there. Maybe that's another thing to look into. Maybe what bag that's from in that town. I don't know.
So the yellow dry bag, I've seen the yellow dry bag in some other social media posts, but I've got some questions about some varying reports about the color of the dry bag that he was carrying the morning that he was marooned, washed up on the beach at Marsh Harbor. I'll get to that in a minute. And it's very, very odd and a bit troubling. And I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But I don't want to leave this issue of him at the walking towards the docks of the Abaco Inn. Did that picture look like the very short snippet of surveillance video that you guys were able to see when you were at the Abaco Inn?
Yeah, that definitely looked like him because what's the chances of another giant guy built like him with a bucket hat on is walking toward that dock? So I'm pretty sure 99% that is him, so...
But what about the place where he's walking? Because you and I have both been there. The three of us actually walked up that walkway together. We walked down that walkway and met right at the road. We talked, the three of us talked on the road and then crossed the road together as he's crossing the road, and we walked down towards the docks. The video that you saw on the surveillance images at the Abaco Inn, it seemed to be that you remember it being around 6:38. Mm-hmm. But this is 7 o'clock on an iPhone. So does this look like the same walkway that he was on when you looked at the images on the surveillance video?
On the surveillance video, it just showed them walking down the pathway in Abaco Inn. The picture was him on the street, out like past the walkway.
So maybe like about 20, 30 yards back was the image that you saw with Brian and Lynette together.
Yeah.
And yet here he is 20 minutes later walking down that same area, but he's just a little further along.
Yeah, it looks like he was walking from the golf carts or something.
So perhaps he is the one that came back up to the Abaco Inn, maybe to use the lavatory, or maybe he'd forgotten something and he was retrieving it and walking back down to the boats?
Maybe.
And Steve, did you feel pretty comfortable that the time stamp on the piece of video that you saw at the Abaco Inn was around 6:38?
It was ish, yeah. We don't think it was on their direct way out, but we think it was around the approximate time of when they were heading out. And I think one or both had to use the restroom. They got halfway down, they go, hey, yeah, I don't want to take a boat ride, and I have to use the restroom. So maybe one or both did. It would be a good explanation of what the 20 minutes is two people using the restroom or walking or someone looking at, knickknacks or looking at something in the gift shop or seeing something on TV, or could be a plethora of things.
But you do agree that the surveillance video at least showed them walking down the path towards the boats at around 6:38, and that this
Correct.
photo shows Brian walking the exact same direction, the exact same pathway, but a little bit further at 7 p.m.
Correct. He was further along. I don't know why it would take 20 minutes to do that, but like I said, there could have been lots of things, but we're just, yeah, I don't know what to say. We're just waiting to see what other information you will end up getting, because you've been getting all kinds of information. I'm figuring you'll fill in the gaps here and there, so
We're trying.
we're just waiting on you.
We're trying, let me tell you. Let's talk about that picture of your mom at the pool doing selfies. She's at the left-hand side of the pool, and he's all the way over on the right-hand side of the pool. Was there anything that struck you about that photo, Karli?
Honestly, not really. She liked taking pictures and videos, so it doesn't strike me as odd that she would be doing that. So no.
Did it look like she had a black fanny pack on? Because I was trying to figure out what that. There's something that looks like a black fanny pack on her, and then there's something that's black that's on the sun chair in front of her. Did you see that?
It might have been like, I don't know. I thought it was like a shirt at first, but if it was a fanny pack, then I definitely can see that because I know she likes fanny packs. So I don't know.
When you were there, did you see her have a black fanny pack or use a black fanny pack or use a fanny pack at all when you were visiting her several weeks ago?
I don't recall her ever using one.
But she definitely carried her dry bag.
Yes, definitely.
Did she often put the fanny pack into the dry bag, do you think, or put anything like that into the dry bag?
Maybe.
But you can't recall her doing that.
I don't remember her ever putting on a fanny pack. I know she's talked about it before, that she liked it, but I don't remember her ever wearing one when I was down there with her.
It wouldn't be out of the ordinary because she had on that bluish green bathing suit cover up. And so it kind of looked like the black fanny pack was sticking out from the bottom, and she wouldn't have a black shirt that would make all that sort of mass at the front. It doesn't seem like it would be an extra piece of fabric, does it to you?
Oh yeah, that's a fanny pack. That looks like a fanny pack.
Yeah, we see it now. It's hard. We've gotten so many, but yeah. No, it looks like that, or yeah, she's like tied on a sarong or whatever it's called, or something along those lines. But yeah, no, it does look like a fanny pack. It's a lot of extra.
Looks like her bathing suit bottoms cover everything. See, like she doesn't really like stuff being shown, like her stomach or her butt. So she was always like covered.
You never saw her wearing a black wrap around her bottom? I mean, the bathing suit cover up would be it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's helpful because that maybe lends to it being a fanny pack more than anything.
Yeah, definitely.
No, that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like it's a belt that goes all the way around.
What are your thoughts about the fact that she seems to be wearing that pink Apple Watch in that picture?
Yeah.
Right there.
So it's sketchy that it was on the boat because I doubt her tan line would be that prominent.
Did you ever see her tan line being that prominent?
No, she's a pretty tan person, like, as it is. So having it that white, she's not that white.
Okay. Because you saw her in, is it February? Mm-hmm. It would take a lot. Maybe not, but it might take a lot to.
Time, so
She was very tanned when you saw her.
yeah, but
So it would be hard to have a very white line underneath because she was already very tanned.
yeah.
So my question to you is, did you ever see your mom get back on the boat and take her watch off early in the day or early in the evening?
Probably, because it probably died on her.
What time of day would it usually die on her when you were with her?
She said she can't wear it at night because it dies before then, so she always has to charge it at night.
But when does night start? Like around what time of night would she be putting it on the charger because it was already dead?
Probably after dinner time.
Okay. Like after 6, 7? So it's possible if your mom came back to the sailboat and did not fall off the dinghy, as Brian says, she might have actually taken that Apple Watch off
Probably.
and maybe put it on the charger.
Yep.
And that might be the watch that the Bahamian police seized off the boat.
Most likely.
And I think you and I have spoken before, she synced her watch to her phone. I think you said that she used Find My Phone a lot, right?
All the time. She loved that feature.
I do too. I lose my phone all the time, so I use it too. I'm like your mom. Definitely. Well, that would be very interesting. If that watch made it back on board, it probably connected to the Wi-Fi, to their Starlink.
Yeah. Can they track the Wi-Fi history?
Oh yeah, they sure can. And listen, if I were a betting man, they probably filed every warrant to get every piece of electronic data called digital exhaust that they have. So that would be really helpful in terms of solving this as to whether Brian and Lynette made it back to Soulmate and if something happened on board Soulmate. And then in the dark of night, if something happened to conceal anything that might have happened on board Soulmate. I'm not saying it did. I'm just saying that these things have to be explored because everything else doesn't really add up, as you know. There's another person who was at the Abaco Inn who saw Brian and Lynette and said that Brian was wearing a, quote, big ol' hat. Does that make sense to you? Like, did Lynette have a big old hat, big wide brim hat? Did the hat that you saw Brian wearing, does that sound like a big old hat?
Was it straw or was it like
Fabric or straw?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they didn't give a description of whether it was fabric or straw. The only description I got was big old hat.
because he does wear bucket hats and she wears straw hats with a brim, and I bought her some on Amazon before I went down there because she lost her first one, and so it could be either one of their hats.
But the one you saw him walking down the path with that still photo, timestamp 7 p.m., that's not what you would consider one of Lynette's big old hats, right?
That's what I had to question at first when I saw that. I'm like, was he wearing my mom's hat? But I couldn't really tell if it was straw or fabric. So that's what I was wondering if anybody had a description on that.
Okay. There is another description, which is really odd. The bartender who served the drinks that night remembers Brian wearing a blue and white striped shirt,
Okay.
but not wide stripes, sort of like really narrow almost, like almost indiscernible. And it could have even been plaid, but he just remembers some kinds of stripes in blue and white. A woman who was there that night was shown some of the surveillance video by the Bahamian police because they were trying to get a description. And she says on the surveillance video, he was wearing a gray or tan shirt that had no pattern on it, just a standard gray. It was either gray or it was tan.
Probably gray. I've seen pictures with him wearing gray, sleeveless shirt.
This was a short sleeve, almost like a fisherman's, shirt or a sailor's shirt or a fisherman's shirt. It wasn't a tank top.
Yeah, like, was it sleeveless?
No, it had sleeves, but it was a solid pattern, no stripes, no blue and white. And that made me wonder, do you know if when Brian and Lynette would pack their dry bags to go up on shore and hang out at a resort or anything, when you were with them, would it be normal for him to take two shirts?
Probably if he knew he was going in the pool, yeah.
Would it be normal? Or did you ever see him putting an extra shirt into the dry bag before heading to shore?
I don't recall, but that I wouldn't put it past them because they're pretty prepared, yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever see your mom putting an extra shirt in the dry bag?
The only time I think they brought extra clothes is when we went snorkeling at Mermaid Beach or something, and I think that's the only time I saw them bring extra clothes when they knew they were gonna go swim.
Another question I wanted to ask you about, and Steve, maybe you can weigh in here as well, because I know you went aboard and got some of the personal effects for Karli, helped her get some of the personal effects when you guys were in the Bahamas. Lynette is seen on that photograph of where she's taking the selfies with a bright blue headscarf. Did you guys ever see the bright blue headscarf on board anywhere?
No, and I grabbed like all of her headbands that were on the hook, and none of them were blue.
When we looked through the picture, we only had a couple pictures and a small video, and I looked through it, but it was nothing like that we saw.
And is it possible that that blue headscarf could be back on board, but you guys just missed it? Or do you remember seeing something bright blue and thinking, well, it's insignificant, or is there anything that tweaks your memory that maybe there was something bright blue, like the color of that headscarf, on board Soulmate?
I think the only bright blue thing was we saw a Columbia shirt, but I think that was Brian's.
But definitely no bright blue headscarf.
No, but I never went into their bathroom, so it could have been in their bathroom. I just went into the room and grabbed the headbands that were on the hook.
What would Lynette's normal behavior be once you had been out all day and got back up on board Soulmate? What was her normal, or did she have a normal routine having been out all day and getting back on board?
Well, in the mornings, I know they have like technology time or something, so they play on their computer and send emails, whatever. And then they do their thing throughout the day, and then at night after dinner time, because they usually eat out, I'm guessing. So then after dinner time, then they just sit on the boat on their phone out on the deck area underneath the bimini.
So tell me if you witnessed this at any time, you guys all went out, maybe you were ashore, maybe you were out swimming or snorkeling, or you went to Tahiti Beach, and then after a long day, you come back on board. What might be your mom's first few things that she would do? Would she go down to her cabin and take off her watch and maybe wash her face or hands, or what would be the normal thing that your mom would do the minute she would get back up on board?
Oh, like when we went snorkeling, right after we got on board, she immediately took a shower and changed.
Where would that be?
In their bathroom. They have a shower in their bathroom and a washer in their bathroom. So she just immediately went down there and showered to get all the salt off.
How many times did that happen? Was that a regular thing?
It was just that once. It happened so fast. I saw her hair wet, and I was like, "You took a shower?" She's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay." And she was done.
And then what about being on her phone or doing any technology, checking voice messages, emails, texts? Would she do that immediately upon getting back on board?
Yeah, because that's when she'd get Wi-Fi again. But they usually have it at the restaurant too, but she doesn't have it in between there.
She have a habit in the evenings of doing social media and editing or working on her phone?
Yeah, because she liked to edit her videos that she took out through the day.
And that would be every evening almost?
Just about, yeah. She liked to play on her phone or just watch videos and go through TikTok or Facebook.
This was a regular thing that she would do in the evenings?
Yeah, they would sit on their phone and watch TV in the cabin area.
That's really interesting. And it stands to reason you never saw a black fanny pack on board the boat, right?
It didn't stand out, no. I didn't know to look for one.
There was one other detail I noticed on the boat, and it was a half of a case of Corona, bottles of beer, and then up in the V berth, I think I noticed a box of Sands beer. Were you guys able to jostle it or know if it was an empty box or a full box?
The Corona on the couch was a 12-pack, and only 4 were gone.
Okay. And what about the Sands beer box of it up in the V berth?
I don't remember. I just grabbed the picture and walked out.
Did it strike you as unusual that there was all that beer on boat? Because I think they had told you they'd stop drinking, right?
I didn't know they stopped drinking, so that's news to me, but I guess they did. and last I knew they were drinking, so that's why they were at the Abaco Inn. But I don't know.
Was it surprising to you that there was beer on board, or did it just look like that's just normal?
They always drink beer, so I didn't strike it as unusual.
Was there anything else in the video that, or at least was there anything else in the pictures that I've been able to get from the Bahamas? That is the picture of your mom taking the selfies at the pool, or the other picture of Brian walking alone towards the boat. Was there anything else that stood out to you that just wasn't what you thought it might be, or that was just, significant?
Well, not the pictures, just the videos you sent. You can hear the water in the background, and it's not like it's a typhoon out there. It's not like it's a heavy rain out there. You can hear there's waves, but it's kind of like a babbling brook. You can hear the difference between a raging river and a babbling brook. It didn't sound like a typhoon was happening out there.
Yeah, I mean, we got surveillance video at 6:15 at the Firefly Inn, which is just not even a quarter mile away. It's just north of the Abaco Inn, and the water is glass as a little dinghy is going out through, heading towards their boat. I've spoken to the woman on board that dinghy, if you can believe it, and she said that all day Saturday, they were up and down the whole coast of Elbow Key, all the way to Tahiti Beach, past the Abaco Inn, the White Sound Channel, and all the way to Firefly. And she said they never would have gone out in the dinghy if the conditions were as bad as Brian made them out to be. She said those conditions were nowhere near like that. There wasn't even 1 foot seas.
Yeah, that's what I saw. And it's like the only waves that were happening were just because of other boats.
I mean, this must be extraordinarily frustrating to see piece by piece the stories that Brian has been telling pan out to be perhaps not true.
Yep, everything he says is like coming up as debunked so far.
Do you have a message for Brian if he's watching?
Well, I know he's not going to change his story because he's pretty good at playing this game, I guess, but I don't understand why you couldn't just leave her and you had to do this and put everyone that cared about her in more through pain, so I just don't understand.
How do you feel about Brian?
Well, there's not enough facts for it to be 100% true, but after seeing Rachel's interview, I didn't know it was that bad, and I've been in that type of relationship before, and I finally left after 8 years of going back to him, and I finally got sick of it and said no more, and she just never got there, so it just gets worse and worse, and it's just a cycle, and I wish things were different.
But what are your thoughts about Brian?
Sorry, my brain is everywhere.
It's okay.
My thoughts on Brian right now, with the facts that I know and my gut feeling and seeing other people's point of views, like Rachel, who was close to my mom, it's just, I'm kind of disgusted, especially after your smirk, looking so happy with yourself after you got out of jail. That was kind of gross. It was disgusting to me. So good luck to you.
Do you want to see him arrested?
Yeah. Honestly, I don't want him to be a free man.
I can understand that. I want to ask you a little bit about some other videos that I've been looking at and trying to get my head around. There's a video of your mom on the back of the boat dancing by herself. Tell me a little bit about that.
I had a gut feeling that they were fighting because the only time they separate, like I said, is when they're fighting. So I had a gut feeling something was off. And then she posted the video of her dancing on a boat. Miss you guys. Like, I think that was just, I don't know, that was just struck me at odds as odd. So I texted her that night. I said, "How are you guys doing?" And she didn't respond. She left me on red. And then suddenly they were back together and they were both texting me again. So I was just like, okay, I guess I'm just not going to be included on what was going on. So I just kind of went along with my life. I just
What do you make of the fact that she's dancing alone on the back of the boat? Anything?
like she knew problems they were having before she left for the Bahamas, and then she still goes out of country with him. I don't feel like that's very smart, but
Was it in character of your mom to dance alone?
she likes to. I think she just really wants to enjoy herself and enjoy being in the Bahamas and on a boat. I think she really wants to try to enjoy that, but she's with somebody that doesn't want that for her.
There's a witness who saw your mom and Brian at the pool. Brian is over on the right, just like the photo shows, and the witness says it looks like he was pouting as he was looking out to sea, and said your mom was over on the left-hand side of the pool, at the place where she was taking the selfie, and she was dancing alone. And I just wondered what your thoughts would be about that. Would that be in character for her, out of character?
It seems in character for them, because what I'm gathering, they're not the same couple that they put on for me as they are in private. So seeing my mom dance by herself in a different boat that's not hers, before they left for Bahamas, and then I hear that she was dancing by herself at that pool that night, it doesn't strike me as odd. It sounds very like my mom trying to enjoy herself.
But enjoy herself more away from Brian?
Yeah, like she obviously knew she had to leave him. She's always questioned, and she bought a plane ticket, so she knows, but something just keeps her going back.
I want to ask you about the dry bags. When you were on board Soulmate with Brian and Lynette back in February, did you ever make note of the colors of the dry bags that they carried?
Mom always had a dry bag with her. She always had her stuff in there, so I think that was green. And then Brian had a yellow one.
Did you ever see an aqua-colored dry bag? Bluish green.
Probably. They have a few. I don't remember the color, to be honest, that well.
Did you ever see either Brian or Lynette carrying an aqua blue-green dry bag?
I don't remember. Not that I can remember.
And do you recall seeing a dry bag of that color on board Soulmate, hanging up anywhere or stashed or stowed somewhere?
I'm sure they do, because they have several dry bags, different types, different sizes. So I wouldn't say that's not possible.
Steve, do you ever remember seeing a bluish-green aqua dry bag?
I was looking for like life jackets and see if there was any flares or stuff like that. I did see life jackets. I did see the beer. I did see some other things, but I remember seeing a dry bag, but I could have swore it was more of a clear, but it was dark down there. It's not like it was bright. There was no lights on. It was just the porthole windows that you could actually get light in, but it wasn't really that light. So right offhand, I remember I thought it was a clearish one, but if it could have been aqua, it could have been. I remember seeing something that was opaque, we'll go with.
How big was it? 1.5 foot by 1 foot, sort of the same size as the dry bags they were carrying?
Yeah, it was a decent sized one. It was, I would say like a big decent sized purse.
But you definitely feel like you saw a dry bag on board.
I remember there was a dry bag, but it was like not so much clear, but it was opaque, and it could have had some color to it, but it was dark in there, and I don't remember. It was just a dry bag.
Trying to get to the bottom of this report that some of the rescuers who saw Brian on the morning that he was washed up on Marsh Harbor, they said they saw him carrying a banana yellow dry bag, which we've seen in photos. And Karli, you've seen him carry the yellow dry bag? Mm-hmm. And some of them said they saw him carrying an aqua blue-green dry bag. all on that same morning.
That must have been my mom's then.
Well, no, it wasn't bright green. It was definitely on the bluish aqua color spectrum, the way they described it.
And apparently they didn't look through either of them, or did they?
Well, the rescuers were looking for Lynette. And this was in the morning when everyone thought that what Brian said maybe was true, before the investigations have proven that a lot of what he said is untrue. Yeah. And so that's why I'm wondering if you ever saw another dry bag that's a different color. I'm trying to put the pieces together, and I'm having a tough one with the two different colors of dry bags that the rescuers witnessed him with that morning.
Because I know they had a bunch of different dry bags in like different sizes.
Because I'm wondering if he had the yellow dry bag and the blue dry bag was inside it. And then for whatever reason, after 4 a.m., he pulled things out and stuck the yellow one into the blue one. And that's why they're seeing a blue one.
Probably. Less to carry.
Yeah, the blue one looks like you'd carry clothes in. Yeah, you have different, and it's probably not as good of a dry bag as the smaller ones, but it's still just to keep basically splash off of it.
But that definitely looks like a dry bag that Brian would be carrying and not Lynette.
Yep, I remember now. Now that I saw that, it brought back, yeah, I remember.
You recall that blue bag. Mm-hmm. Did you guys find her wedding ring on board?
No.
Weren't really looking for it, but hey.
I didn't see it at all.
Yeah.
And you looked for that specifically?
I feel like I would remember seeing her diamond, because she would always like play with it. So.
Single solitaire diamond?
She had the normal band and then one with a diamond. I'm guessing that's engagement one.
So the band was a precious metal, and then the engagement ring was a precious metal band, then one single diamond? Mm-hmm. No additional diamonds anywhere? And you guys looked everywhere and never saw it?
I didn't go in her bathroom, though, so it could have been on the sink, but I didn't think to check.
Steve, you didn't see it anywhere?
Not to my recollection, no. I was looking for sentimental little knickknacks for her, like, the picture frames, that kind of stuff.
Did she ever take her wedding rings off?
Not that I remember. And plus, I remember Brian gained some weight, so his ring was like tight around his finger. It would like take a lot to take it off.
Yeah, but your mom wasn't in the habit of taking her rings off on board. Mm-mm. She would wear them to sleep?
To my knowledge, yeah.
Okay. I want to ask you guys something about what Brian's lawyer said in that ABC interview. What did you think about that?
Be open-minded to the fact that just because Karli and Darlene are making these claims, there's absolutely no evidence to support any of the allegations. Absolutely none.
There is evidence on everything that I've said. It's been backed up, everything that I've said.
Just because you weren't convicted or a guilty verdict, it doesn't mean you're not guilty of doing that thing they accused you of. When it happens and several other people saw it happen, you can't say it didn't happen. It's just because they say it's not child abuse for choking your kid one time, doesn't mean you still didn't get choked.
And your mom has photographic evidence that she says is bruises on her back as a result of having been choked by Brian on the boat and having her back pressed up against the back cockpit of the sailboat.
Yeah, so my mom, she may have done some whatever questionable stuff, but she does not lie. She has never lied. Even my dad can contest to that. She has never lied once. Like, she's done some stuff that's like, what? But she doesn't lie about it. So, yeah.
And you've witnessed... Karli, have you witnessed Brian getting aggressive with your mom?
Yes.
Like once. What kind of things?
I saw her choke her and throw her out of my room, but otherwise I haven't seen anything else.
To be fair, he was actually defending Karli at that point when it happened. So we're not saying it still happened, though. You can't say, hey, I'm a good guy, but I did this. You you choked her and you threw her out of the room. While he was defending Karli at the time, it still doesn't change the fact that he still has on numerous occasions choked her, choked the daughter, choked, and that's what was told to Karli directly by Lynette.
And didn't you, Karli, witness Brian putting his hands on his 12-year-old daughter around her neck, and that actually resulted in charges, and you testified in court about it?
Yeah, I was a witness in 3rd grade.
So you have seen Brian being violent.
Yeah.
So the fact that his lawyer is suggesting that you might be making stuff up is just
I don't
factually
understand
incorrect.
when it's all documented in court documents. Isn't that, like, not proof?
She may have spoken too soon.
Yeah, she doesn't know all the facts, obviously.
What do you want to say to that lawyer?
Just good luck, I guess. You know, whatever happens, happens. Just know all your facts, I guess, first. I've been saying it everywhere. Everything has been backed up. I even told Inspector Lewis at the Bahamas, and he even agreed, like, yeah, everything you said has been backed up. Because he even asked me about Brian's allegations that he said about me, so I told the Bahamian police everything, and it's all been backed up. That's all I have to say.
Guys, thank you very, very much for taking the time to talk to us, and we'll continue to press for answers for you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all that you guys have done.
It's our pleasure. My great thanks to Karli and Steve for talking to us. This is not easy. Just imagine, Lynette's mom, Darlene, is going through all of this as well. They don't know she doesn't know where her daughter is. Karli doesn't know where her mom is. They don't know what happened. And they've got this mystery. And Brian, who's spoken a zero to either of them. Now, if she really bounced off the back of your dinghy, wouldn't you be talking to her daughter and her mother nonstop? Bupkis. They've heard nothing from him. In my line of work, that says one thing. Sketchy. Brian, why aren't you talking to the daughter, the stepdaughter who's been in your home almost her entire life? Why are you not talking? She's just lost her mother. Why are you not talking to your mother-in-law? She's just lost her daughter. Is there a reason? Because innocent people don't behave like that. They just don't. Folks, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. And love that you like and subscribe and do all those things that help us continue this podcast and keep it going. I am like a dog with a bone on this case. I'm not letting it go. I'm doing all sorts of things in the Bahamas, trying to figure stuff out. You know that the Coast Guard doesn't have jurisdiction there, right? They gotta work at the behest of the Bahamians. And the Bahamians, I don't know how they operate. I'm just coming into week 4 of this, and it's like, really? Because after we pass Saturday, that's tomorrow, we're going into week 4. Tomorrow will be 3 weeks since Lynette disappeared. And I know, again, the duck paddles feverishly under the surface and looks very calm above. And that may be what we're seeing in this investigation, this multi-jurisdictional investigation. But tick-tock, Brian Hooker. Tick-tock. I've got more episodes coming. I've got more information I want to share with you. Just trying to run down a few things, clear a few things, and enhance some video. That's in the episodes that are upcoming. Again, please like and subscribe. I know it's a weird thing to say. All the kids say it. Like and subscribe. But it does help, so subscribe, please. And this Sunday at 5 p.m., that's April 26th, we're doing another member event, a Q&A. It's Ask Me Anything. So if you want to be a part of that, and you really can ask me anything about this case, you can ask me anything about anything. Just join. You have to be a member in order to be able to be a part of the member event, because I'm doing that exclusively for our members. Sometimes I do this. I do these Ask Me Anythings with wine, or sometimes more than just wine. I'm wondering what I'm going to have this time. Maybe rum and Coke. Anyway, this Sunday, 5 p.m., April 26th, Ask Me Anything. Please join if you want to be a member. Please subscribe, as a member mentioned before, and hit the like. And thank you again. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Justice for Lynette. Just everybody get your mind on that. Remember, the truth isn't just serious. It's drop dead serious.